Welcome back, everyone, to our part 2 of the Coed Killer. I am Alana.
I am Lady.
And this is Spookery.
Part 2.
Part 2. All right.
It's part 2. Your first part 2. How are you feeling?
I know. I'm nervous, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh my god, can I make this next part just as good as the first part? I don't know.
Knowing what I know about Ed Kemper, I know that this one is going to be incredible.
It's a doozy. It is pretty jam-packed. I think the first part and the second part are equally eventful, just with the amount of stuff that happened, to be honest with you.
I believe you.
All right. Trigger warnings. We are covering a lot of different topics today, so just kind of a blanket trigger warning for all of those, because it is a very brutal case. If this is not for you, I completely understand. This episode will include graphic descriptions of injury, animal cruelty, sexual assault, cannibalism, and necrophilia. Again, I completely understand these topics are difficult ones to stomach. And if this is not your episode, we will see you next week for Ladies Cult episode.
We sure will. And it's totally fine. Ed Kemper is a lot. Ed Kemper is a lot, guys. So, do not feel bad if this is not the story for you. That is A-okay. We'll see you next week. I don't know if that'll be for you either, but... But we will see you in any other of the episodes. We have some really awesome ones that are very soft. We have great ones with the Bermuda Triangle. We have Tailypo. We have... all sorts. We have a lovely tale of Bonnie and Clyde if you would like to listen to that and dedicate 6 hours of your life to that.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. If you haven't listened to Bonnie and Clyde and you're at this episode, what are you doing? Go back and listen to Bonnie and Clyde. That's like the highlight. That's the pinnacle of season 1, guys.
I disagree, but I did end up talking for 9 hours on that one, so it's fine.
Well, your disagreement is noted, but I stand by my statement.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to give the mic back to you. Let's pick up this awful pile of awful and get right back into it.
Yeah, and get right back into it. All right, let's go.
Perfect.
So with that being said, let's go do a quick recap of part 1. So in part 1, we talked about Ed's early life, him moving in with his grandparents, which resulted in his first murder, him being incarcerated for the first time, being released back into the care of his mother, and then talking about his... I don't want to say his real first victims, but his first victims after being released again. We talked about Mary Ann Pesce, Anita Luchessa. We talked about Aiko Ku, as well as Cindy Shaw, who were unfortunately his next victims.
God, they were harrowing. I think Aiko and Cindy were rough.
Like I said from the beginning, he really did some grisly acts, and it was hard to hear about, to say the least. But there is some sort of justice at the end, so we will forge on in part 2, and we will get to that resolution. So if you want to join me...
Love it.
So as the next month rolled around, suspicion heightened in the area of the possibility of a serial killer. So I think this is around the time that the term serial killer was coined, because a lot of people were actually... on the lookout, because not only was Kemper an active serial killer at the time, there was 2 other guys. There was John Linley Frazier and Herbert Mullen, which we'll talk about more later. I actually think I misquoted at the beginning when we were talking about Ed Gein. I think I was thinking of Millen, and I said they were active at the same time. I will have to correct that.
No worries.
That just hit me.
It's all good.
Yes, so John Linley Frazier and Herbert Mullen were also very active at this time in California. And so this kind of resulted in Santa Cruz receiving the very infamous nickname of the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, California was pretty much serial killer hotspot number 1. There were so many serial killers active from the 60s all the way to the 80s.
Yeah.
And it just was rampant.
And this was 1973, so it was right at the height of that. It was like in the middle. People were very scared. They were very aware that a lot of people were out to get them, and that actually resulted also in the students in the area kind of being advised, hey, don't accept rides from cars without university stickers on them.
Oh,
they figured that would help, right?
Oh,
well, do you remember whose mom works for the University of California, Santa Cruz.
Oh, but it's like serving people up. Like, they're just like, hey, don't trust that serial killer. This serial killer is homegrown.
Yep, he's certified. He's USCS certified.
Look, if we're gonna allow a serial killer amongst our midst, we're gonna make sure he's one of us. God damn it! It's so.
I said USCS, UCSC.
US.
That's the campus. UCSC.
My brain goes USAA.
I want to say that. I'm like, it's not in the right order.
No.
But it is. But yeah, he had the sticker, which basically gave him a license to kill, because people still trusted him.
It quite literally did, because people were like, oh, serial killers don't have stickers.
How did he get this? How did he?
He must be a trustworthy guy. He's got a sticker, for fuck's sake.
They don't just give stickers to anybody.
Nuh-uh.
Okay? There's a whole background check vetting process that goes into getting these stickers.
Yeah, this is a sticker certified.
Yeah, and that was the key to him continuing, to be honest with you, because I think had he not had that again, he had these ins with the police, he had his ins with the highway department, he, time and time again, like, things were going bad, but things were aligning so perfectly for him to be a serial killer. Like, it's so weird. Like,
yeah, it's literally the perfect storm of serial killerism.
It is. It's, like, disgusting how easy it was for him to do. Like, it was easier for him to take the path of a serial killer than it was for him to do the right thing. And that's clearly, like, why it was like, yeah, like, look how easy it is for me to just get away with this.
Yeah, it was like, Ed Kemper, I want to be a state trooper. No, sorry, you're too tall. But here, you're going to be in the hitchhiking capital of the world. Serial killer is now coined. Bam, you have a sticker. You've already killed 2 people. You're already equipped. You've got a murder kit. We will lend you police equipment as part of your murder kit. Here you go, Ed Kemper. Go out and kill.
Yeah, that sticker was all he needed to continue. And
yeah, all access pass.
Basically. And on February 5th, 1973, after a rather heated argument with his mother, Kemper left the house specifically in search of possible victims. As usual, he literally was like, screw this conversation, I'm gonna go murder. So as usual, he went looking close to the school's campus, and that's where he would encounter 23-year-old Rosalind Heather Thorpe and 20-year-old Alice Helen, she went by Allison Lou. Not long after picking them up, Kemper would fatally shoot the 2 girls, and with the 2 bodies still bloody in his car, this man drove straight past campus security through the gates.
Excuse me?
Did not even...
With them in the back seat?
That's what it sounded like. I tried Googling, like, more details on this, but it was hard to find an exact, because it's all based off his recollection, but it said that he had them in the car, he shot them. Some reports said that he, like, covered them, like, with blankets, but it didn't say he, like, moved them at all, so at best he just kind of, like, covered them and was like, no one will notice that, and then just drove straight through the gate, and people just waved there, like, bye, Ed, have a good day.
That's that Ed guy. We love Ed.
Yeah.
He's back to killing in twos, because that's how he started as well. And it's like, that's it's a choice. It's a confidence thing as well. It's like, I can 100% take 2 at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know.
The tragic part in this one was, I don't remember which one of the girls, but one of the girls was very hesitant to get in the car to begin with, and the other one was like, no, come on, this guy seems so nice, and she talked her into it. So, like, it was another one of those, like, this just was, like, so close to not happening that it hurts. Like, it's...
Those poor muffins, it really... And they were probably debating it, where it's like, no, it's dangerous, and then they probably looked at the car and were like, well, he's got a sticker.
Well, he's got... Yeah, like you say, he's on campus. Like, he got on campus, he has a sticker, like, no one's... He's picking us up in broad daylight. Who would do that? Would a killer do that?
Yeah.
Like,
he's 6'9". Like, people would know if, like, he was up to something.
Exactly. And he's charismatic, as we know. And like you said, I think maybe girls found him a little charming. I don't know. I look at him and I'm disgusted by him. But maybe people found him attractive prior to knowing what he was capable of. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So, again, Kemper kind of repeated the same process he did before. He brought the victims back to his mother's house. But this time, he decided to behead them in the car, as to maybe not make a mess in the house. I don't know. So he then... I don't know his reasoning. He just decided to do it in the car this time.
It's just so awful. Everything about this is so awful.
It's really grisly. Trigger warning. He carried their headless corpses into his mother's house again to have sexual intercourse with them, and he then dismembered the bodies further, as well as removing the bullets to prevent identification.
Sure. God, he's so dumb.
But then he's so smart.
But he's so smart, and it's just like, why do you have to be so smart when you're smart, and why are you so lucky when you're so
stupid?
Dumb?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it comes down to, is like these moments that he's rolling nat zeros, like the world comes in and just rolls a nat 20 for him, and he somehow skirts by, and it's like, I don't really know how that's happening. How do you get pulled over with with 2 dead girls in your trunk, and you just get to drive home?
Yeah, and it really, I'm sure it was connections. I'm sure if the campus security probably knew him. It's like, oh yeah, that's just Ed.
Yeah, that's
just Ed. His mom works here.
That really, like you said, all the dominoes lined up for him to just do this, and it's awful.
Yeah. Stupid universe dominoes.
Yeah. So the next morning, he would discard their remains, and in March, some of Rosalind and Allison's remains were found by Eden Canyon. And about a week later, more were discovered by hikers near Highway 1 in San Mateo County. So he went far and wide to really try to get rid of the evidence. He really was like...
Yeah. Unfortunately, he was kind of smart, which is like, it's so gross. You don't want him to be.
No.
It's just like, but he knew the roads. He knew the places. He knew where the others were, so he knew not to create a dumping ground.
Exactly. There was no links between any of these things. People weren't putting the pieces together. There was kind of, like I said, there was other serial killers at the time, and there was rumors of the Coed killer. That's what they called this person, this unknown killer out there, as he's picking up these hitchhikers and stuff like that. They were aware, but they also weren't sure exactly who, which victims belonged to which killer. People were just going missing. So it was a very scary time. But at the same time, these girls are still getting in the cars. It's like, I don't know. I didn't live back then. I would never hitchhike now. I don't know what the culture was like.
Yeah, but we're in so anti-hitchhiker culture, so it's something you and I can't understand.
That's exactly.
But hitchhiking was just a way of life. That was just like, to get from point A to point B, you hitchhike.
And I think it would be hard to switch yourself out of that mode, having grown up that way. I'm sure some of these girls literally have been hitchhiking from the time that they were 15. Now they're college aged. They've been fine this whole time, and they're like, all right, there's a handsome guy that wants to give me a ride to my car. I'm gonna let him.
Yeah, and I'm sure these women were probably amazing judges of character.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Kemper was just charming as fuck.
Yeah.
And he was tall, and he had the thing that people said to trust, and they were like, I have no reason to distrust this person.
That's exactly
it. And it really was just the universe dominoes just fell down a certain way.
And I do think what played into it, too, is we're talking about the time period that this happened in. Even now, women are taught to be very polite, right? So even if your gut is telling you this is not the right situation, most of the time, you're not going to be rude about it. You are not going to cause a scene. Even when dire situations happen, I mean, one of the most common ways of dying is choking, because people literally, when they're choking, they get embarrassed and they go into the bathroom and go into the other room, and then they die alone in another room. That is so common. So in this situation, where people are actually watching and someone's offering to give you a ride in public, you're not you're standing there hitchhiking. You're gonna kind of look like a bitch if you just pass them down for some reason, and you're not I don't think these women were willing to risk that. They're nice girls, you know what I mean? That's not what you do. Nice girls don't say no.
No. So let this be a PSA. Rather be rude than dead.
That's exactly.
Be rude.
Please
be a bitch.
Be a bitch.
I would so prefer someone be a bitch to me and apologize later for being wrong than for someone to just
blindly
put up with disrespect or suspicious behavior because society says don't be a bitch.
I think that played. I do think that played into it. Looking at these, like you said, he's this big man. You respect men. You respect your elders. That's the time period. And he's telling you, I am going to give you a ride, and you're getting in this car. And they do. I think that really played a heavy part into his quote unquote charisma. I don't even know if he was that charismatic. I think it was just a part of the time.
And it going back to Aiko, I'm sure there's so much of that where it's you're 15, you don't know what's going on. You're in a terrifying situation, but you've got this guy who's you need to listen to me.
Yep.
And you've got to do what I say. You've got to let me back in this car. You've got to agree to be bound up. I'm not going to hurt you while I press this gun to your ribs. It's a lot of like, I'm so uncomfortable and I'm so afraid, but I can't be the one to be that. I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to do this. It was like...
They're not taught to be bold. She was never taught to be bold like that.
She was the one that started crying, wasn't it?
Yeah, she started screaming and crying. So, I mean, like, that was her reaction. She had one. And when she realized she was put in a corner, she did, I think, the only thing she really felt to do.
But I wonder if he made her feel bad for feeling that way.
Yeah, like I'm sure.
If she flagged, she was just like, I'm in a dangerous situation, she screamed and started crying, he probably was like, why are you being a fool?
Yeah, and that's what, he literally turned the cards on her and was like, no, I want to die. How dare you feel in danger? Like, I want to die. Like, he made her feel bad for him. I need a friend. Why don't you want to be here for me?
It's manipulation. He was a manipulative bastard.
It wasn't charm, it was manipulation, like you said. That's really...
Yeah. And, maybe the charm, if he was charming, maybe the charm played into it. But at the end of the day, Ed fucking Kemper was a manipulative asshole.
He was.
That's it. And that's it.
He was. And, he was all too good at what he was doing. So despite the fact that these girls' remains were actually found, there was still no evidence actually linking any of these crimes back to Ed. So I'm sure at this time it really was only making his confidence grow, and I really feel like at this point he probably felt pretty untouchable. With the connections he had within law enforcement, he had already killed all these people, and they were finding bodies, and they were still, nothing was being traced back to him. So he's like, I don't even, like, he probably was just feeling very confident, very cocky. And,
I'm sure he felt invincible.
Yeah, truly. Where he's like, I'm like almost like in like a god status where he's taking other people's lives, but he's untouchable.
Yeah. And as my 6th grade math teacher once told me, your overconfidence will be your undoing.
That's very true. It's very true. So, before we move on to the final case, I do want to go over a chilling conversation that Ed had with his sister, actually, in April of 1973. It's one of those situations that afterward you just kind of look back and go, wow. So these are her words. Their nickname for Ed was Guy. So when you hear me say Guy in this, I'm referring to Ed. That is his family's nickname for him specifically. So Guy and I discussed then one day when Mom and I went to university to borrow a movie projector so I could show a movie that I had brought home from Montana. There was something said about Mullen firing his attorney because he had long hair, and I asked Guy if he thought that Mullen had done the Coed slayings too. He said that he didn't because none of them were similar in any way to how his victims had been shot. Then the subject was dropped.
That is very... I've got goosebumps. They're kind of like crawling up my ribs right now. It's like, man,
it's kind of crazy. Like you said, Jake, they literally like there's other serial killers going on. They're talking about Mullen. They're like, and they're literally just like, yeah, what do you think about this? And he's just like, oh no, he's having casual conversations about things he's done.
I don't think he did it.
Yeah,
because he knows who did it.
Yeah. She would go on to say, the first weekend I was there, Guy went to Turlock and picked up his fiancée and brought her home to Mom's. We went to San Francisco that weekend. I, Kemper's fiancée, and Guy, along the road he mentioned that down there, pointing to the right, was where they had found 2 girls, propped up against something. I don't remember the exact area. We drove along the coast, but this was a hilly section inland just a bit. I believe it was just south of San Jose. Another time I commented on the girls hitchhiking, and I remember they weren't too bright considering what happened, and the particular ones I mentioned were really dressed shabby. He said that it was strange because some of the Coeds killed were very attractive girls, not hippie looking at all. I think this was mentioned at the time that the conversation about Mullen was discussed on the way to the university. Then the subject changed. He didn't say or do anything strange or comment any more than anyone might comment because of what had been happening. But then one day when we were driving home from Aptos along the beach toward Santa Cruz, just sightseeing, Kemper pointed toward the beach and mentioned that a girl's head was washed up along there. No more was said, and that's all he brought up.
Wow. It almost sounds like he wants to tell them.
Well, he, like you said, he kind of, I feel like, wanted to have that conversation. It was bubbling under the surface, but he just, obviously couldn't admit it. He knew because of like all his psychiatric everything else. The minute he actually admits out loud that he has even fantasies of killing, he's going to be sent back. Like he's very aware of that.
Yeah, it's Ed fucking Kemper. Like, it's very haunting. It's the fact that, you know, he's almost open with information, but he's not giving it away anything that, you know, a regular person wouldn't already know. Which is, once again, it sucks. It's smart of him. Which, like, that he's not giving away only things he would know, being the culprit.
Exactly.
He's just like, oh yeah, like a head was over there. It's like
that was reported, like you said, someone found that head, but it's like, why are you bringing that up? Like, why are we, like, we're passing this, and you're just like, I don't know, like that's not a normal conversation starter. Thanks, Ed.
I think it was like I think he genuinely wanted to talk about it. Maybe he wanted to tell them, but I don't know. It is a very haunting conversation. And I'm sure the hindsight of all of that as well. Can you imagine having that conversation and then a little bit later finding out that
he actually was responsible.
He was the one.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Absolutely insane. And so we've already kind of gone over all the silly mistakes that he has made and all the close encounters that he has had with law enforcement up until this point. But there is one more incident, and it's kind of a doozy. So I mentioned before that his past kind of caught up with him a little bit. So just a few weeks before his final act of violence that also took place in April 1973, Santa Cruz Sheriff Sergeant Michael Aluffy was instructed to confiscate a gun illegally in the possession of an Aptos man. Who was that man? None other than Edmund Emil Kemper III himself. This was a routine bulletin sent from the California Department of Criminal Investigation and Identification, and Ed's name happened to be on it because he had illegally purchased a .44 Magnum revolver and falsely swore that he had never been in prison.
This tips me off. Like, this just brings me back to my earlier statement that I made way back in the beginning. I wonder if his murder kit was made of borrowed items.
Yeah, it really.
And, you know, he was borrowing, like, maybe for his first couple of early kills, he borrowed a gun from his cop friends. And then when this quote-unquote Coed killer started gaining a reputation, I wonder if his cop friends were like, I'm sorry, but I can't give you my gun. I need it just in case I find the Coed killer. So he was forced to get his own gun.
Yeah.
Which then caused this flag. I wonder, I can't help but think that way.
Yeah. I mean, he did have, from what I read, he had at least 3 different guns in his possession. So I don't know where he obtains them.
Maybe he was friends with the gunsmiths. Maybe he asked his friends to buy them. I know that was a common serial killer trick. They would get their friends to buy them guns for them. Mm-hmm. So the gun would be in the friend's name, but then they would be like, here you go. Here's the right of sale. Or he stole the gun. Or, maybe.
I mean, in this case, he literally just said, no, I've never been to prison. And they went, great, good job. Here you go. Here's your gun. Have a great time.
That's your background check. Sorted.
They just asked him. It was a yes or no, true or false. And he got it right. Yeah. So we got a gun. And
we're going to have to give you a very thorough examination for the use of this gun. Question number 1, have you ever been to prison?
That's literally all it took. And they handed him his .44, and he was good. But not, for a while up until this point. So they came to try to confiscate it. However, when the sergeant drove over to the listed address, he found that no one was home. Just as he had turned around and was walking away, up pulled a yellow Ford right behind the officer, and inside was Kemper and his fiancée. So, finally gonna have a conversation. They began to question Kemper about the gun that he shouldn't have. All the while, Ed was kind of sweating a little bit because this is kind of similar to when he had dead bodies in the car. He has multiple guns that he shouldn't have strewn throughout his house. He has one in his car. He has one in his closet. He has a different one in his car and a different one in his closet than the one we're asking for. So at the same time, they're like, hi, we heard you have a gun. And in his head, he's like, well, I have multiple guns. Which one are you talking about?
Who? What? Which gun?
Yeah, and you can't just ask the police that. You can't just be like, well, which one? Because that answer. So somehow, with his chummy ways with the police, he makes some sort of sly comment about, well, that's kind of a small gun or something like that. And they go, well, it's a 44 Magnum. And so,
Which is not a small gun.
And they just give it away. That's the gun we're looking for. And he goes, okay, that gun. Great, thank you.
Oh my God.
And in addition to all these guns, he's also sweating a little bit because inside his closet, right next to a gun that he's got propped up, he has a box full of mementos from his killings.
Oh my God, he's a trophy collector.
He is.
Oh my God.
So,
I completely forgot about that.
they're standing right outside having this conversation, and he's like, yeah, I'll get you the gun, I'll get you this, somehow.
So sorry, officer. Whoops, accidentally got a 44 Magnum.
Yeah, I accidentally lied. I should have remembered. That time I went to prison. How could I forget, silly me?
Oh, that's the question they asked. I thought they said, do I own a prison? No. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The clerk had an accent. I was just really confused that day. I was drinking while driving as well. I'm so sorry. Let me go get you that murder machine.
Yeah, so I mean, I read this section a few times and it still kind of baffled me. I don't know how to properly explain how he got out of this conversation. So all I can say is, if only they would have caught him here.
Yeah, if only.
That very same month, April 1973, Ed Kemper would commit his final 2 murders. It was Good Friday, and Ed had decided to hang out at his mother's home. He waited for her to return home from work, but she had actually gone out straight after and did not return home until about 4 in the morning.
Oh.
After returning home early that morning, 52-year-old Clarnell awakened her son with her arrival. I don't think it was like a nice wake up. I think she was loud and drunk, and I think she came home and he just got woken up.
Yeah.
And because of that, or in spite of that, or just because he was awake and they were in the same room, the two allegedly had a very unpleasant exchange before Clarnell would just head off to bed.
I feel like that's par for the course. If the two of them are left alone in a room and one of them is mildly inconvenienced, some sort of fight is breaking out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Without a doubt.
This is a toxic relationship.
It was. So, it was after she fell asleep. Ed specifically waited. He has been fantasizing this, I think, since it said he was about 8 years old. He has been having this specific fantasy of creeping into his mother's room and bludgeoning her with a hammer. And that's exactly what he did.
Hammer?
While she lay asleep, he crept into her room with a claw hammer and struck her as hard as he could over the head. And this is where it gets really dark. So we're going to give another trigger warning here for grotesque violence, as well as necrophilia.
All of the above.
All of the above. Just be prepared.
Yes.
So after bludgeoning her, he would slit her throat with a penknife and decapitate her. So
with a penknife? He decapitated her with a penknife?
Yeah.
The effort that would take.
Yeah, it was pretty bloody. And just like his earlier victims, he decided that he wanted to engage in sexual acts with his mother's head. But this time, he specifically cut out her larynx and put it down the garbage disposal. However, the garbage disposal, they're not really equipped for that type of tough tissue. And so after he ran it spit the tissue back up into the sink. And Kemper actually later specifically said this. Again, I'm not trying to quote him too much, but this was a quote. He said, "That seemed appropriate, as much as she'd bitch and scream and yelled at me over so many years."
Oh my God.
Yeah. Kemper also later stated that he put her head on a shelf and screamed at it for about an hour. He had a lot of pent-up rage, as well as decided to use it as a dartboard until ultimately he smashed her face in. So, he
is an animal.
Yeah.
This is brutality. This is vicious. This is just rage. This is 20 plus years of anger and hatred and animalistic desires and just everything that he's learned up until this point just coming to a head.
And it almost seems like every killing up until this point, like this is the person that he actually wanted to kill this whole time.
Yeah, it's so awful to say, but like every killing up until this point was a warm-up. That it was a trial run.
It was. This was his finale. This was what he wanted to actually accomplish. He hated his mom, and he wanted her dead. Like I said, this is actually a fantasy that he admitted to having from the time before he even hit double digits in age. He imagined hurting his mother because of the lack of love that he gave her, or that she gave him, and just the toxic relationship that they had.
Yeah, and it's being in a pressure cooker with no pressure release. It's just constantly putting a lid on a situation that needs to be just gone. It needs to be removed, and these poor women, these 9 other people that have died, so that he could finally get the person that he wanted to kill all along.
And that's exactly it. And I even recall him stating, I know you said some of these girls potentially reminded him of his mom. Part of it, too, was he would kill these girls. He mentioned they were pretty, they were well-dressed, he was trying to destroy the things his mom loved and that his mom coveted. She had these 2 daughters that she praised so heavily for being all these things that he wasn't. And he, in a way, whether he was taking it out directly on his mom or just destroying the things that she loved, that was a part of it for him too, he said.
And I'm sure, like, because his mom was a teacher at this school, so hurting her students and hurting people who could become his mother later. People who dressed like his mother, people who looked like his mother, people who behaved like his mother, well-educated women who were not pushovers, who were smart, were quick, were full of life, full of love. Things that he saw in his mom that he wanted from his mom that she never gave to him.
Exactly. And he was going to take it away from someone else.
And he was going to hurt his mom, and he just basically he set himself up for it.
He did. And all of this was just a lead up for this, really. And just like you said, the most fucked up way. This was all just warm up. Yeah, and he finally did it. He did what he wanted to accomplish. But yeah, it doesn't make it better.
No. So it's just, what was the point? What was the point of all this?
Yeah.
What was the point?
So trigger warning over. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah. So after this ordeal, Kemper hid his mother's body in a closet before once again leaving to go get a drink at a local bar, where he tried to think of a plan. So he had landed on the idea to make it look like his mother had actually gone on a vacation with a friend. So he plotted of how to make that happen. When he returned home to his mother's house, he phoned his mom's best friend, Sarah Taylor, or Sally Hallett, and had her come over under the guise of having dinner and watching a movie.
This is so reminiscent of his first murder.
Yeah, where he's like, there's like some sort of like a mercy killing almost, but he's like, he has to, I don't know, like it's weird. Like there was no reason for this.
But it's also like his first 2 murders, his grandparents. The grandmother was this just lashing out of anger and violence and dislike. Mm-hmm. And it bubbled over. A murder was committed. Yeah. And then he's just stood there and he's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I not get in trouble for this?
Yeah.
It's this exact same thought process. It's like, whoops, I did something. I lost control, and somebody that I can't explain is dead now.
What do I do? And he's scrambling, and in his brain at this point, this was the way forward. People asked, his mom went on vacation, and he would leave. So the minute that Sally returned to the house, he ambushed her and strangled her to death. He put her corpse in the closet next to his mother's, and then he cleaned the house as though to obscure any sign of a struggle. So
it's so his grandparents, violent rage, panic, what do I do? How do I not get in trouble? Very simple killing afterwards of like, whoops.
Yeah.
Let me just tidy this up.
Like, this killing will cover this killing, and I'll sweep this under the rug, and we'll move on. Yeah. And, like, that's in his head. That'll work.
Yeah, and and the poor fucking Sally probably didn't even know that that Clarnell was dead.
he probably didn't want her to know, you know what I mean? Like, kind of the similar, like you said, he's like, I don't want to put her through that, I just need her body to cover this body up, and it's kind of like...
This is the one person who would actively look for my mother.
Yeah.
Who would miss my mother. So, it's like a weird fucking mirror of his grandparents. It is so strange that these are the bookends.
Yeah.
These are the bookends of Ed Kemper. It starts one way and it ends exactly the same.
And they're both with family.
And it's just, man, Ed fucking Kemper.
Ed fucking Kemper. So he, like I said, he cleaned the house and he ended up staying the night at the house. So the next morning is actually when he decided to leave, but before he did, he would write a note to the police. It read, approximately 5:15 a.m., Saturday. No need for her to suffer any more at the hands of this horrible, murderous butcher, he put in quotes. It was quick, asleep, the way I wanted it. Not sloppy and incompetent, gents. Just a lack of quote-unquote time. I got things to do, with 3 exclamation points at the end. And he left. From his mom's house, he would drive nonstop over 1,000 miles to Pueblo, Colorado, taking caffeine pills the whole time to keep him awake. He just drove straight 1,000 miles.
Oh my God.
I think
he must have been emotionally shot.
So I think at this point, he was waiting for his mom. Good Friday was April 20th. April 21st is actually the day that she died because it was 5 a.m. That next morning after she had come home and she was already asleep and he waited for her to go to bed. That same day, I believe, is when he invited Sally over, still on the 21st. He left the next day on the 22nd. I think at this point when he's arriving, it is now the 23rd. From his mom's house, he took with him the 3 guns that he had and hundreds of rounds of ammunition in his car.
He still had all 3 guns? He didn't have to turn away the fucking Magnum?
I don't actually know. But he was expecting a Bonnie and Clyde style shootout with the police. He felt that there was going to be a manhunt ensuing for him and that he was going to go out in a blaze of glory. So he packed all the ammunition he had, all the guns he had, started chugging caffeine pills, and took off to Colorado to try to avoid. I don't really know what his plan was at that point, because actually, like, on his way there, after not hearing any news about his mother and his friend, when he actually arrived in Colorado, the first thing he did was find a phone booth and he called the police department himself.
Yeah. I think for the first time in his killing spree, he didn't have a plan.
No, I think he was just going.
Every murder, he was like, commit murder on Thursday, just dismember the body on Friday, have dinner with girlfriend, bury body on Saturday, meet for drinks at the bar on Sunday. His everything was meticulously planned out by requesting time off from work. He was very calm through the whole process, and this was the first time for probably 10 years since he killed his grandparents where he was like, fuck, what do I do? I can't call my mom.
Not just that, but this, I think, like you said, if this was the end goal, what else is there to do? I mean, he accomplished what he wanted, so at this point, he was ready to be turned in. He called the police department, and he made a full confession about how he killed his mother. But get this, they didn't believe him. They said, not our Big Ed, our favorite civilian pal from the jury room, that Big Ed? No way, no thought. And they literally did not take the call seriously, and they told him to call back. They hung up on this man and said, call back, we don't have time, Ed, we don't have time for your jokes, that's not funny.
Oh, you don't joke about things like this. This is not, Ed, this isn't Ed territory. If somebody calls you and it's like, hey, I killed somebody, that's not joke territory. You're like, you put yourself in a place, like, do not move, we are coming to get you, that is never a joke. I don't know why they didn't take him seriously. Like you said, just that relationship that he had. The fact that at this point he still confessed and could have gotten away with it. He could have at this point said, you know what, I tried. The universe doesn't want me in jail. And he could have just kept going. He could have... Ed Kemper could have fucking walked into the sunset, never to be seen again. He would have just been the Coed killer. We would know nothing.
And that's exactly it. But the fact that he did exactly what they asked. Several hours later, Kemper tried again. This time, though, he went, I'm going to be taken seriously, and he specifically asked to speak to an officer that he knew personally. He again confessed to the killings of his Sally and his mother, and this time, whether they believed him or not, the police officer had said, stay where you are, and we'll come pick you up. Once they came and picked him up, though, they started to really get his confession. He also confessed to the murder of the other 6 students. Police were baffled, but the only reason that they believed him was because during these interrogations, he was able to prove, he led them to all the evidence they needed. He said, yeah, I got this head in my backyard. I can tell you where everything else was. I can tell you details of the crime you haven't released to the public. What do you want to know?
Yeah. Man, oh man.
And that's, I mean, even exactly like we're discussing, actually. When asked in an interview later why he actually did decide to turn himself in, Kemper said the original purpose was gone. It wasn't serving any physical or real or emotional purpose. It was just a pure waste of time. Emotionally, I couldn't handle it much longer. Toward the end there, I started feeling the folly of the whole damn thing. And at the point of near exhaustion, near collapse, I just said to hell with it and called it off.
Yeah.
It's again, this is where I said at the beginning, justice is kind of served, but is it really when he just asks to go to jail? When this is on his own volition and it's not a punishment to him, he's just going back to a place where he's gonna live his life and be revered for helping all these psychologists and psychiatrists and I don't know if that's if I feel good about that.
I feel like no, like you kind of want there to be a dramatic, like, we finally got you, Kemper. You've got you surrounded.
Yeah,
come in with your hands up.
Yeah,
but it's also, this was probably his first moment of clarity in 10 years.
Yeah,
after prison, this was probably his moment where, he had this feeling. He's like, I'm going to commit this crime, and he did his, I don't want to say he did his best, but measures were taken where his mother wasn't in direct proximity, where he couldn't act on these urges. So he took them out on other people. Mm-hmm. And then he went to prison and they were like, Ed, accidents happen. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Becca, you get a second chance. We'll expunge that from your record. Like, out you go, buddy. Like, you're cured of everything that you've ever felt. And he's like,
okay.
And he's just, all he's learned is how to hide it. All he's learned is how to talk to people and how to play the system and how to psychoanalyze people with whatever skills, tools he has. And he's just living in this state of, it's almost like, like he's at the starting line of a race, but the gun never fires. He's just waiting for that moment. And eventually he shoots the gun himself. That's all it is. And it took so many false starts and so many practices and so many trial runs and he was telling himself, he was calling his 8 other victims, or 7 other victims, they were just it's objects, because he had to remove who they were to put his mom over them.
It's true.
And it's awful. Like, so much needless death. After he killed his grandparents, if he had just stayed in prison, that's 8 people who would still be alive. And it could have been amazing people. They could have been doctors, lawyers, humanitarians, presidents, politicians. They could have changed the world. They could have made something incredible, and they were cut short because somebody had a bone to pick with his mother.
Literally, like, it's just tragic, and mommy issues led to this.
Yeah.
Like, as simple as that is to say, it's just like, wow.
And the psychologists in the prison even said as much. They were like, yeah, you've got issues with your parents. And then they just threw him right back in with the sharks. They're like, wow, that really is what fucked you up. Well, guess you got nowhere else to go. Let's just send you right back there. And it's like, are you serious? It's like, oh yeah, but he was a model prisoner. He was so well behaved because his parents weren't there.
Yeah.
His mom isn't in prison with him. His dad's not in prison with him. He's on his own, sufficient, and living life independently outside of that environment. And then as soon as he's put back in there, that's when the killing starts again.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that, when he was released, if he had stayed separated from his mom the entire time, if he, I can't say for sure. He probably would have killed someone at some point.
Yeah, I think that would have bubbled over. But him being in prison and just away from the situation in general, completely removed, maybe that would have done it. Yeah. I don't think he would have ever achieved that on the outside on his own. But maybe with the help of actual psychiatrists and being surrounded by in an environment where he can't physically harm people, that maybe is what's best for him. And that's, at this point, where he's at.
Yeah,
So-
you know. Yeah. Kemper.
So on May 7th, 1973, Kemper was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder. During the wait for the trial, Ed would attempt suicide twice, but was unsuccessful. He was assigned Chief Public Defender of Santa Cruz County, Attorney Jim Jackson. Ed gave explicit and detailed accounts of the events during his confessions, which left the counsel with the only option of pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. However, 3 separate court-appointed psychiatrists found Kemper to be legally sane, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got wherewithal to make active decisions like that, that's not insanity. That's just maliciousness.
Yeah. One of the psychiatrists, specifically Dr. Joel Fort, investigated his juvenile records and the diagnosis that he was once psychotic, but he said, nope, not anymore. And so this is going to be another little trigger warning. This is where the cannibalism comes into play.
Oh, good. I was wondering where that was going to show up.
Yeah, it's alleged. He's went back and forth. He's confessed and then recanted, and he's confessed and he's recanted. But he's also said he's had a lot of fantasies of cannibalism, and it's mixed. This is also a sketchy confession because this same doctor also had interviewed Kemper at one point under truth serum. So he testified to the court that Kemper had confessed to engaging in cannibalism, alleging that he sliced flesh from the legs of his victim, then cooked and consumed these strips of flesh in a casserole. But this confession, like I said, was later recanted by Kemper. So I don't actually know.
Yeah, truth serum's a bit like a polygraph test. Mm-hmm. Like truth serum. It's more, from what I understand of it, and I haven't looked into it recently, but it's not one that makes you want to tell the truth more. It makes you more compliant.
Yeah,
and
that's what I've heard too. It just makes you agreeable.
Yeah, and it's more like if someone's, especially if they're asking leading questions, if they're just like, "Did you do this?" and you're like, "Probably."
Yeah.
Like, and did you do it this way? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I must have.
Yeah.
And then did you do this afterwards? Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and I mean, if these are already fantasies that he's having, and they're kind of, like you said, asking leading questions, and he's under truth serum, I can see how very easily they would get to that point of getting that quote-unquote confession from him.
Yeah.
The reason that I found this kind of strange, too, was, I mean, he was very open and willing to take responsibility for everything else that he did. He was almost proud of it in a way. So I feel like, why would he draw the line at cannibalism if that was the case? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why that would be the one thing he was like either embarrassed or he didn't want to take credit for.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, that didn't make sense to me.
I'm kind of swinging to the way of like that was probably more leading questions and agreeable chemicals in his body. But like, just because you don't do cannibalism doesn't mean that your crimes are any less. Like,
oh, absolutely not.
Yeah,
no, but
like,
that was just something they were trying to use as a point to prove that he was insane. But it was such a sketchy confession.
Such a loosey-goosey, wiggly-woo.
Exactly. So regardless of that, the actual trial itself would go ahead on October 23rd of 1973, so not too shortly afterward. And California did exactly kind of what you said. They used what is called as the McNaughton standard, which held that for a defendant to establish a defense on the ground of insanity, it must be clearly proved that at the time of committing the act, the party accused was laboring under such a defective reason from disease of mind as to not know the nature and quality of the act that he was doing, or if he did know it, that he did not know what he was doing was wrong. So basically, he didn't understand what was right from wrong. But they were able to point out that, no, he knew that this was wrong. I mean, he fled from the scene afterward, like he fully confessed. Like there's things that he did that show he was guilty.
Yeah, from what I understand of like the insanity defense, it's more like it happened. It was a very quick moment. An act happened that was like completely out of the blue, completely against their characteristics. They had no wherewithal to what they were doing, or that what they were doing was right and wrong. And then they leave, and then their clarity comes back, but they don't really recall or understand what they've done. But the fact that Kemper planned this out with Thursday was murder day. Friday was a disassembly day. Saturday was hang out at the bar. Sunday morning, scatter body parts and then go to dinner with fiance. It's like, because everything happened, it's such a wide window. It's not valid.
No, but he did try to claim that on specifically on November 1st.
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah, when Kemper took the stand to himself, he testified that he killed the victims because he wanted to, quote unquote, he wanted them for himself like possessions, and he attempted to convince the jury that he was insane based on the reasoning that his actions could have been committed only by someone with an aberrant mind. He said that two beings inhabited his body, and that when the killer personality took over, it was kind of like blacking out, like you said. So he was in a completely different state. He doesn't even remember. He can't be held accountable for that because it's the other half. It's the killer half of his soul taking over. It's not Ed. It's not big nice Ed. It's Killer Ed that's doing those things.
Yeah, it's not Big Ed. It's Killer Eddie.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that's exactly what he tried. And it's crazy that he's that smart because he's not insane. He's just smart. He knows the system. He knows exactly what you just said, and he knew how to make that defense plea. Luckily, it didn't work. His own sister actually is one of the people that testified against him. Alana Kemper, she revealed under cross-examination that both she and her mother actually thought Kemper might have been involved in the death of Cynthia Strahl. She testified that she asked her brother directly whether he had anything to do with the killing, and he flat out told her no. But I was afraid you might be suspicious because of that cat thing. My mother had already asked me about it, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't bring it up again because it will just stir things up.
What? You're just accusing me because I killed those cats, aren't you?
Yeah,
that's so unfair of you. Just because I've hurt innocent animals doesn't mean I would hurt innocent humans. What do you take me for?
That was his reasoning. He's like, no, and my mom already asked about it before, and I didn't want you to. No.
It's so I don't appreciate that tone of voice. It's like
it was. Yeah, no, that quote kind of made me laugh a little bit. But he's just like, and I would appreciate you not bringing it up. And
you're
just
gonna
kind of
stir something up. It's okay, what am I gonna stir up? Your confession? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, exactly. You're already on the hook for 8 murders, my guy. What? So, So clearly she didn't bring it up. Under questioning by District Attorney Peter Chang, she also revealed that she herself was almost killed by Kemper. This too happened in Montana, and she explained that Kemper clearly always had an interest in guns, and one day as she was walking through the living room, she heard a click. As she turned, she said that a bullet from Kemper's .22 rifle whizzed past her ear and buried itself in a bookcase. And he went, oops, I thought it was empty.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
So
this is so Bonnie and Clyde. It's them cleaning the guns in the garage and then them firing into the ceiling at 2 a.m. and it's just oops, I thought the safety was on. I thought those guns were empty. It's you don't point guns at people even if you think they're empty.
Right. In this case, though, I mean, it does kind of beg the question. Did he actually think it was empty, or was he maybe kind of showing his sister look how easy it would be for me to kill you? I don't know. Was this an accident on purpose? Was he actually trying to aim at her and she just turned her head and it just went straight past her? I don't know.
I don't know. Part of me is no, that was on purpose because he's a fucking monster.
Yeah, I want to say it's on purpose too.
But then the other part of me is what if he was making the decision? He's another family member down the line. But then as she turned around, because that was the thing, the bullet flew past her as she turned around, and he likes to shoot people from behind.
He does. It's a very impersonal thing. Don't look at me while I'm killing you, or be asleep while I'm killing you.
I can't see who you are when I'm murdering you. That's very unfair of you to identify as a person while I am smothering the life out of you.
Yeah, I don't want you to be mad at me.
And I do wonder, the click might have been the aim, but because she turned around, he identified her as oh, I know that person. That's a person. Yeah. And then the bullet, he flinched, moved to the side, and that's why the bullet flew past. I do, especially with family members. That's how he killed his grandfather. That's how he killed his grandmother. That's how he killed his mom.
I'm assuming the same. I don't know for sure.
A hunting rifle.
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
Well, he didn't kill his mom with a gun, but he waited until she was asleep. He very easily could have killed his mom when she was alive, but he waited for her to go to bed. And he even said, I didn't want her to suffer. It's you...
But what? He had a weird part of mercy to him, but
yeah,
I don't know. It was very strange.
I do think that her turning around probably saved her life. If he was serious, the fact that she turned around saved her life.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that was an intentional thing, and I think I think she's very lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
So, combined, the sister's testimony combined with how kind of not seriously people took Ed's testimony, California was able to make the case that he was sane and he did understand that his actions were wrong, and he had shown signs of malice aforethought. So,
yeah, back to previous episode. Let's go.
Yeah. When asked by the judge what he thought his punishment should be, Kemper asked for the death penalty. He actually asked for death by torture, specifically.
Very reminiscent of his childhood games.
Again, I told you that was creepy foreshadowing. This is like his childhood fantasies. He's like, please give me my childhood fantasy of being tortured to death. But at the time, I think California had some sort of a stall on death penalty. No one was getting the death penalty at this time. So instead, he received 8 concurrent life sentences. And on November 8th, 1973, the 6-man, 6-woman jury deliberated for a total of 5 hours before declaring Kemper sane and guilty on all counts.
Good.
But like we said earlier, due to the other laws in California at the time, Ed would eventually be eligible for parole. So, he was first eligible in 1979. He was denied parole that year, as well as at the parole hearings in 1980, 1981, and 1982. But as we have seen in the past, Ed is pretty good at playing these systems. He knows the psychiatric system all too well, and kind of knows just what to say. So on June 15th, 1988, Ed was denied parole again, even though a prison psychiatric evaluation termed Kemper suitable for release. Luckily, a 3-member panel from the Board of Prison Terms was the one to step in and actually rejected the psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Jack Fleming. Thank goodness.
It's the short hood of human memory, right? This man
They're like, he's so good. He's a model prisoner. Let's just let him back out. It's fine. It's like, this happened when he was 15, my guy.
This man, killed 10 people. 10 people, 8 in a very, very small window. And one is eligible for parole, but
15 years later, they're like, he's fine, he's rehabilitated.
Yeah, but one, he's eligible for parole just flat out, and 2, the fact that he's convinced another lab coat man that he's like, yeah, he's totally fine. There's no, this man would not harm a fly, even though he has killed 10 people in his lifetime.
Literally, he's like, I would trust him with my life.
Yes, he's got a sticker. But he had a sticker.
But he had the sticker. Like, yeah. So, again, thankfully, this board stepped in. Board member David Brown said Kemper poses an unreasonable risk to society.
Yeah.
During Ed's almost 3-hour hearing in front of the board, he told the panel that he did not practice cannibalism or perform sex acts on his victim when they were dead or dying. He said that he made those confessions to police when he was tired and confused. Regardless of the plea,
baby Kemper,
he was just so tired.
He was so tired.
Confused. They were talking to me so much, I didn't get to have my caffeine like I do. It was a bad time,
I didn't get my coffee. I didn't get my sunshine. I was just really tired that day.
Literally, it was pathetic that he even tried. So,
oh my God.
Thankfully, again, regardless of this plea, Brown specifically told Kemper his crimes shock the public conscious.
Yeah.
And Ed's final statement on it was, society is not ready in any shape or form for me. I can't fault them for that.
Yeah, no, duh. No shit, Sherlock. You killed 10 people. I don't think society is ready for that. I'm going to be honest. We're not currently parading around going, wow, you know who's an upstanding citizen? The Coed killer himself, Ed Kemper. Let's give this man a medal, release him from prison, and make him president. Let's just... Society's not ready for a fucking serial killer. You might be onto something.
He tried, but at least I guess he accepted defeat there. He's like, they're not ready for me. They're just not ready. They can't handle all this.
I don't fault them for that. It's a lot, I know. It's like, come on, you're a fucking... killed 10 people.
Oh, I know. Just the way he speaks. Shut the fuck up, Ed. Right?
Shut the fuck up, Ed Kemper.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the name of the episode. Shut the fuck up, Ed Kemper.
Oh my god. Like, we could put shut the bleep up. What? Yeah. Oh my god. Who the bleep did I marry? One of those titles. I'm good with that. All right. So, so he was denied parole again a handful more times throughout the years. Specifically, prosecutor Adrian Simmons said, "We don't care how much of a model prisoner he is because of the enormity of his crimes." Yeah. Quite simply put, I mean, that's exactly it. I don't care how much of a model prisoner he is. Like, he murdered 10 people.
I feel like just, like, it's just so fucking wild to me. The eligibility for parole, he killed 10 people.
I know. Our justice system doesn't make sense sometimes as far as that goes. Like, he's legally entitled to this right. But why? Like, why?
I feel like if it's like he's eligible for parole for one of the killings, but he's not eligible for parole for the other 7.
Yeah, like, right?
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, so, just fucking Ed.
Currently, the last time that he was denied was in 2017, and like I told you at the beginning of the episode, he will be eligible again in 2024, but hopefully he will forever serve his life sentence at the California Medical Facility in Vacaville. That's my hope.
Ed motherfucking Kemper. The man, the myth, the piece of shit himself. What a What?
Yeah. So I did have one more recount from his sister saved. Again, I was trying not to read too much, just direct testimony from people, but there was one more like little chilling story from his other sister, Susan. Mm-hmm. So about let me see, sometime in March of 1973, Kemper and his mother actually went off like on an off-roading trip. They took a Jeep, and Clarnell actually injured her shoulder. So Kemper's sister, Susan Swanson, because she got married, that was her married name, came and stayed with Kemper and his mother on April 1st. She would stay with them for 19 days. So she left just 40 hours before Ed made the decision, or he maybe already made it at this point, but just 40 hours later, he would murder his own mother. So she recounts the last chilling days before she left, and there was actually just one little piece that really, really got me. So she said, "I've never taken lessons in judo or karate, but I have picked up a few little things. I'm fascinated with the tournaments, watching the art. I wanted to show Kemper this new throw that I had picked up on television. Well, being 6'9" or whatever, I'm 6'1" or 6.5", and like a half inch myself, so not a weakling, and I was going to show him how the throw goes, but I couldn't even waver him on his feet." And he says he's standing there with his hands on his hips and goes, "What are you doing? What are you trying to do?" So his sister was a pretty tall lady.
Yeah, so it sounds like tall ran in the family.
Yeah, but she'd continue, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to throw you, you know?" We clowned around and made fake little karate chops at each other. I'm sure you can like imagine them kind of like...
Yeah, it's so normal. Fake outs. It's so scarily normal.
Wait for your blood to run cold. So say if I came around the corner or something and he was coming around at the same time, kind of like a surprise, not to surprise each other, but just kind of bumping into each other coming around the corner, we'd go pow pow with a few little phony karate things. But the most scary thing right now is how he would make a motion with his hand, like he would karate chop and lap off my head, and then he would hold out his hands as if he caught it. He would do that several times, where he would make this kind of like little flap noise and karate chop her head, and then like kind of like over exaggerate and like catch her head.
Oh my God.
She said this motion, especially now, just with that whap, and makes his little hand like he's catching my head, and I'd laugh. She said, "I just can't believe it now." Imagine how truly blood-chilling that would be to hear the details of what happened to your own mother right after you had this like little like haha chopping off your head interaction with him.
My rib chilies are back. I got full rib chills.
I knew it would do it. Yeah, that was one of the most chilling parts. Like I said, I had to wait till the end, because it's him fantasizing, playing out how funny would it be, haha, I chop your head off, as if he hadn't already done it several times before to people.
But what if this was an instinct at this point? Because he's decapitated people. He's chopped people's head off. What if that was something he had to do while he was removing the heads of one of these women, that he actually had to catch it?
Yeah, like absolutely could have been, like you said, he just swung so hard and the force caused the skull to roll, and that he's reenacting something. It was a muscle memory.
Yeah, there's so much there that you could write theses on that. But how haunting. And, like, it's so strange that like, on the surface, he has, like, a very pleasant relationship with this sister. Like, they're play fighting and karate chopping. But he almost shot his other sister.
Right? It makes you wonder. It does, like, make you wonder.
The whole dichotomy of that family is so strange. Like, well, and yeah, maybe we don't talk a lot about his relationship with the sisters because the mother, of course, is the focus. But what was his relationship with both of his sisters? You know, with this friendly one where he's play fighting with her in the living room, where he's later going to murder somebody. And
his sister was one. He actually walked the sister down the aisle. He's the one that gave her away at her wedding. So they were kind of close. She got married. I'm trying to remember what year she got married. It was right after, I believe, that he was released from prison. So I think he was around 21, and he gave her away at her wedding. Like, they were, even after this, like, they were kind of a close family, despite the weird, toxic relationship that they seem to have underneath the surface.
Yeah, but then, like, the fact that he thought, quote-unquote, was cleaning the gun, pointing it at his other sister, and, narrowly misshooting her in the head, I'm like...
Yeah, maybe he had a favorite.
Maybe one of them was closer to the mother. Maybe the one that he handed away, maybe she was a much more neutral party where she was like, mom's kind of loopy sometimes, or like...
Yeah, like they were on the same page on that as far as that goes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like mom's a piece of work, and the other sister was like, you can't talk about mom that way. And it's like that, and maybe, if Clarnell was favoriting one sister over the other, maybe, I don't know what the sisters did for their life, maybe their career or their professionalism or their personality or the way that they tied their shoes. I don't know, but the mother maybe gravitated to one toward the other.
She clearly did pick favorites, like you said. She didn't like Ed, so I'm assuming she probably maybe pitted her daughters against each other. I don't know. Maybe there was that sort of resentment between the three of them. I'm not the correct person to say, but it is something to speculate on because it is such a weird thing that he clearly had the opportunity. She was there for 19 days, from the 1st of January to the 19th, and then 40 hours later, either he made the decision while she was there, while he's sitting there pretending to, how funny would it be if I karate chop your head off? Did he already made up his mind at that point? Was this a split decision? Like, when was that decision for him actually solidified in his brain? And that is the part that I'm curious about, because these events are so chilling.
Yeah, and it's strange to me too, because of course with his other sister, he kept bringing up the Coed killer. He's like, that's the beach where the head was found. Like, that they found something over there. Like, did you know someone was murdered? He's actively bringing it up to the other, with the mother and the other sister. But with this sister, it's like, we're play fighting. It never came up. For 19 days, he never once brought up the Coed killer. You never once felt like he needed to confess.
And I think she probably, seeing what she recanted after this and going through all that, I think she probably would have mentioned that if that was something.
Yeah, and I wonder, her presence in this house for 19 days might have diffused the environment to a degree, whereas with the other sister, it was escalating the environment to a degree. I'm not qualified to diagnose in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that I know this for certain. It's just a feeling that I have. So... But I definitely see the parallels between how he behaved in front of both of his sisters, where one was almost like a soft confession and the other one was just, we're having fun and it'll never come up. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's wild to see. It's crazy that they even allowed us into their perspectives on this, because this is something a lot of the time that happens. I mean, we saw it with Ed's fiance. I mean, if she really was 16 at the time, I don't blame her for wanting to keep quiet, but a lot of the times families of killers don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. It's very difficult. I mean, they didn't do anything wrong. This is a sister who's completely innocent in this matter and going, I just lost my mother and now my brother's going away for murder. That's really difficult. It's brave of her to want to share these things with us, and it does let us kind of peek inside and get that extra perspective on the relationship, but in this case, it really does only raise more questions, because it's just like, what was going on, Ed?
Yeah.
But at the same time, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up, Ed, but what the fuck was going on, Ed?
Yeah, it's weird how that works. Like, I want to know, but I don't want to listen to him talk.
Yeah.
I had a hard time stomaching any actual interviews, listening to anything that he said. I really had to read a lot of written transcripts of interviews and things like that, just because it's chilling. I mean, he so calmly will explain how he killed people, and it's just a very weird thing.
It's a very, very weird thing.
So that, I mean, pretty much wraps up my actual story of what happened and the aftermath. The last thing that I really have on my list to talk about is just the influence that Ed really had on pop culture, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just his story, how crazy it was, really not only, I mean, impacted, like we said, law enforcement and just all of that, but it really played a big role on film and literature and pop culture at the time. I mean, it was a big deal.
We talked about this a little bit in part 1. I was saying that I know references of him from, honestly, Hannibal Lecter, my first guess, and then his quotes in American Psycho. And it's like, you know, he even though he's an absolute fucking monster, like, end all be all, he killed 10 people, shut the fuck up, Ed Kemper, he has had tremendous impact on us as a society and understanding serial killers and how we perceive serial killers, almost to a degree where we, like, some people revere serial killers. Like, Ed Kemper
they glorify them.
Ed Kemper is a heavyweight hitter in the serial killer world. Like, he's a big boy.
He is.
Like, and you know, he gets a little outshined by John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, but I would argue that Ed Kemper was probably more influential.
Right? It's weird because when you really think about the impact he had, you're like, wow, how is he not talked about more? But at the same time, I think it's probably good because I don't think he deserves the notoriety, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, and it's like when you started this episode, I could have told you exactly who Ed Kemper was and what he did in his stalking ground. I couldn't tell you a single name of his victims.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you it was Cindy or Aiko or anybody. And even now, it's like, with the amount of information that you've given me, this beautiful story, it's like, can I list all 8 right off the top of my head right now? No, I cannot.
Yeah.
Not without referring back to our notes or listening back to the episode. And it's so awful that 10 people had to die, and all we remember of those 10 people is Ed motherfucking Kemper.
It is. And it's the same unfortunate story that really does happen time and time again with these serial killers, and they're the ones that are remembered when it really shouldn't be that way. Despite that, creative people in the world have taken these things, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, they've managed to use these ideas in their works. And like we said, in one of the first instances of him really being referenced was in Silence of the Lambs, the book actually written by Thomas Harris in 1988. He was the inspiration for the character Buffalo Bill, who also at the beginning of the story killed his grandparents, and the stories are very similar. And that's honestly Silence of the Lambs, along with I think it's Red Dragon is the other one, and then like you said, Hannibal Lecter. Those movies are some of my favorite movies, and I had no idea prior to this that he was actually like the person behind that, which is probably a good thing. Again, I don't think the average person should just know the name Ed Kemper. It's fine to know Buffalo Bill, it's fine to know Silence of the Lambs, but I don't think we should all know Ed Kemper's name specifically.
Yeah, there's a great example of this, like, because I don't know if you talk about this a little bit later, but American Psycho, because my go-to on the serial killer front, which of course is Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale. And in that movie, he actually says an Ed Kemper quote, which you didn't talk about, but it's, when I see a pretty woman, like, I think two things.
It's my next line.
It's your next line. It's like, when I see a pretty woman, I'm going to do this off of my head. I said, when I see a pretty woman, I think one of two things. One, I'd really like to take her to dinner. And two, I want to know what her head looks like on a stick. But
you pretty much nailed it.
But my favorite thing about that is that I think Christian Bale was asked about this, or one of the writers was asked about this later, like, well, that's such a weird line. And he's like, yeah, it was from Ed Gein. Misquoting. And I'm like, I kind of like it, like, because it's like, we don't want to give Ed Kemper the credit for that. And it's like, no, Ed Kemper didn't say that. That was Patrick Bateman said that in American Psycho, and that's it.
In the movie, he actually, part of him saying that, he goes, you know what Ed Gein said about women? He said, when I see a pretty girl walking down the street, I think two things. One part of me wants to take her out to her, be real nice and sweet and treat her right, and the other part of me wonders what her head would look like on a stick.
Yeah.
Like you said, you nailed it, and in the movie, they attribute it to the other person. So Ed Kemper's probably sitting there going, that was me! And I hope he is. I hope he's mad about it.
Yeah. And I think I think the situation in the movie is very similar to real life. I think he said, like, Ed Kemper said that, like, to a friend in a bar, and he was like, you know, like, wouldn't it be crazy if, and it's probably that same conversation where he's like, never marry a woman who's smarter than you. It was probably very much the same vein.
Totally.
But it's like, you know, it's kind of nice that we attribute it, like, we misquoted. It's like, oh, it's just like Ed Gein said.
It's almost like we're just trolling him forever because it's in the movie forever.
But then again, like, also Ed Gein doesn't deserve to be credited either, so, like...
Yeah, he is going to get his whole other episode one day, and we'll talk about the ramifications of that.
Yes.
But yeah, like you said, 2000 film, American Psycho, that was the other one. There was another, I had two more notable ones on here specifically, which we kind of already even talked about one, which was the Mindhunter on Netflix, which came out in 2017. He was portrayed by a very tall actor, 6'5", Cameron Britton.
Not tall enough.
Not tall enough, but he did a fantastic job. I think he actually won an Academy Award for this, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on this, but he did win some sort of an award for this, like for the acting in this.
Because Emmy
an
is
Emmy, maybe?
TV shows.
Yeah, something
Academy
like that.
Award is more films.
I don't know. You're the one that knows.
Not as much as I used to know, baby.
So I think he got an Emmy for that.
He got some sort of award, and it was a statue, and it was very shiny.
Yeah, it was. But the sad part about that show is it actually wasn't renewed for a season 3, so any spooky listeners out there, don't give it the time, because you're just going to be disappointed when you get to the end of season 2, and there's no more.
You heard it here first. Don't get invested in shows that get canceled.
Don't get invested. It's good, but then there's just nothing. They lost budget. I don't know what the film, but yeah. The other notable one that I had on here, there was, I guess, a horror film that was loosely based on Ed Kemper's Murdered, but I don't know why it said loosely. I guess maybe just because they didn't do a very accurate job, but it was literally titled Kemper the Coed Killer.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, yeah, so I'm just kind of like, how is that loosely based on him when it has his name in the title? It sounds like it's like a documentary almost.
Ed Kemper the Coed Killer, loosely based off of Ed Kemper the Coed Killer. No affiliation.
I thought that was kind of funny.
I think it was probably artistic license where it's like, we're gonna make him kill 20 people instead of 10, and then he's gonna go out in a beautiful fireball, and then we like arrest him, and like, yeah, it was probably like, he's too dumb to be revered in such an honorable way as having a movie based off of him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he should have a movie, but I do like the characters based off of him, that's for sure, because I can like those guys without feeling guilty about it. Yeah,
I think fictional serial killers is kind of fun to like get into that mindset where it's like, oh, you know, here's this very like smart and sophisticated, you know, calculating villain. But serial killers...
Hannibal Lecter sitting there listening to his classical music as he chops up and eats a person. One of my favorite scenes in a movie ever, and I don't mean for that to sound psychotic, but it is a masterfully, like, put together scene. It is so good.
But I would argue that fictional serial killers are 1,000% smarter than real life serial killers. Real serial killers are dumbass motherfuckers.
As we've seen.
Ed Kemper got fucking pulled over.
Real humans are very stupid.
Like, there are so many killers as well that get pulled over for speeding or erratic driving, for looking suspicious, being nervous. And it's like, you didn't get caught for killing, you got caught for being a dumbass.
And in this case, he literally, like, he just turned himself in, and I just don't understand, like, if that was the goal the whole time, just why'd you leave jail to begin with?
Yeah. So, my point to that would, fictional serial killers are a lot of fun because they're smart, they're calculating, they're intelligent, and they're always like 6 steps ahead of everyone else. Real life serial killers, lucky ass motherfuckers is all they are.
It's literally, just those random nat 20s that get them out of the shit situations, and they don't
rolled a
deserve
2,
them.
but the rest of the world rolled a 1. Like, that's it.
Yeah. It's super, super strange. But yeah, that is the story of the Coed Killer. I know, like you said, you knew most of it. I'm glad I could fill in some of those details for you. And we could really take the time to discuss all of the victims and give them a little, you know, just a highlight about their life.
Yeah. Would you mind reading their names again just so we can just celebrate them without the context of Kemper? I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are remembering Ed's grandparents, Edmund Emil Kemper Sr. and his wife, Maud Matilda Kemper. as well as Mary Ann Pesce, Anita Luchessa, Aiko Ku, Cindy Shaw, Rosalind Heather Thorpe, Allison Helen Liu, as well as Sarah Taylor Hallett, Clarnell Elizabeth Strandberg.
Yeah. Rest in peace, everyone. I hope you're in a better place, and we're remembering you for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said, it's the least we can do to look back and remember you in life instead of just death. And like you said, hopefully they are all just in a better place now.
Yeah. And make sure we'll post pictures of all of them as well on Instagram so you guys can see them. We'll release them based on which episode comes out. But yeah, it's just good to celebrate who they were and get them away from stupid motherfucking Ed Kemper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But with that being said, this is the end of my first high-profile case and my first two-parter.
What a heckin' fucking doozy, man.
It really was. This one took a lot out of me to research. It took me a long time because I had to take a lot of mental health breaks, which I don't blame you listeners too. If you need mental health breaks while you're listening, please take them. These topics are not easy to listen to, and it can be a lot on your heart, truly. So
yeah.
Whenever you need it, whether it's after this episode, in the middle of an episode, please take those breaks. Make sure you're taking care of your mind too, because it's important.
This is very heavy stuff, guys. No one is ever going to fault you for feeling overwhelmed or feeling sadness or just not being ready to listen to some of these topics. That's 100% okay. Go take a break. Go touch some grass, breathe some fresh air, watch something fluffy, read your favorite book. It is 100% a-okay.
Absolutely.
Alana and I are here whenever you decide you want to listen, if you ever want to listen, and there are thousands of episodes that we are going to record and create that we already have recorded that are softer, fluffier, and they are a completely different ballpark. So,
absolutely, that is the beauty of the Spookery Wheel. Is just giving us all those different categories, so we don't spend too much time in dark places.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you did an amazing job with Ed Kemper. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Ed.
Shut the fuck up, Ed Kemper. But you nailed it. You told the story. We were able to celebrate the victims in their lives, and separate them a little bit from Ed Kemper. We were allowed to make fun of Ed Kemper. And
absolutely,
you've just fucking nailed that. What an amazing high-profile case to add to the heckin' frickin' spookery.
I'm very honored to be able to tell the story. I'm very grateful for everyone who shared their experiences, so we were able to bring this to you today. And yeah, lady, more than anything, I'm just glad you enjoyed it, because I always write my scripts just to be able to tell you a beautiful story, and if anyone else wants to listen, it just is cherry on top. So
I love this, especially since I live in the true crime wing of the spookery, and it was so awesome for you to kind of shed light on something I did kind of know about. And you just being able, and us just being able to talk about it very organically, this is an awful thing that happened. Wait, what happened?
Yeah.
And so this was a really fun episode to record with you, ma'am. Thank you for an amazing conversation. Thank you for an amazing depiction of the tale, and I'm so proud of you. Your first two-parter. Welcome to episode length issues, ma'am. It's all fun over the side.
I did not plan on this being a two-parter. This was the same length as this was shorter than my Bermuda Triangle script, and somehow we got through that one super quick, and this just took so much longer. It's crazy how that happens, but I'm glad we did it.
I think both of us have learned very quickly that our number of pages in our scripts mean nothing.
It's not an indicator of anything. It's useless metrics.
It is a wasted number.
It is. It does not allude to anything.
It means nothing in this world.
No. Your numbers, get them out of here. Page numbers, not today.
Not today.
But that's all right. I am ready to be done and put this case to rest. Can we spin that spookery wheel and give me my final category for the season, ma'am?
I think the least I can do is spin the spookery wheel for the final time for season 1 and give you our season finale episode, ma'am.
Final category of the season. I have one category. I'm not even going to lie. I haven't had one category in particular that I've wanted so bad, but I have a case. So I'm ready to go if I get this category. So I have my fingers crossed, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Look, you are blessed by the spookery wheel. You always get what you want. But I feel like in this instance, because you have voiced this, you're never getting this case.
I know. I ruined it. I totally shot myself in the foot.
If you had not said a single thing, you would have gotten it guaranteed. But
Probably.
Because you have mentioned that you want something, the spookery wheel is like, season finale, no.
Yeah, it operates on spite, so like you said,
It
I
does.
voiced it. It's not gonna...
Yeah,
not
and
gonna do
this
it.
is a little known fact, guys. The spookery wheel is fueled completely on vengeful spirits.
On vengeful spirits.
And they're full of spite, and that's what gets the wheel going. I don't actually spin the wheel. I just sort of think things near it, and it spins on its own.
It goes, it knows, and when it stops, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, but we get a case out of it, so...
Sure do. All right,
All right.
spookery spirits, please bless you, girl.
Right. Final spin of our first season, our season finale case.
Gosh,
Let's
my heart is pounding.
fucking go.
Let's go, baby.
Baby, you're spinning.
I'm actually like breathing heavy right now, man.
Our season finale, and your final case of the season, ma'am, is hauntings and spooky locations.
We haven't had anything like since the Ouija episode. Like
We have had no ghosts
No
up until
actual
this point. You have hauntings and spooky locations, ma'am. That is our season fucking finale.
What a cool way to round this out.
Congratulations, ma'am.
What? Oh my gosh, I don't have one ready to go. This is another one. I gotta dig. I gotta find something good for this. I gotta consult.
You gotta consult the spooky spirits.
I do.
They chose this for you.
Haunted locations.
Man, oh man, hauntings and spooky locations.
Let's go. What a fun category.
Go.
Oh, that's so cool.
What
I don't
what
even...
what an awesome thing to end on. We started with ghosts, we're ending with ghosts.
I think it's a good way. Those are some good bookends for the spookery, ma'am.
We're having some great bookends this season. Like, whoo.
That's awesome. Wow. We gotta repeat. We're getting 2 cult episodes. We started with ghosts. We're ending with cult. Like, we had a lot of variety. Like,
We did.
We had a heist. We had we had our amazing Bonnie and Clyde like ballad, the 3-parter there. We had a Bermuda Triangle episode. So many different
We've
things.
had folklore, we've had fire, we've had murders, we've had time and space, we've had everything this season.
We've gone in, I feel like, every direction at least a little bit, and this is a very good coverage.
It's been a very balanced season. I don't feel like this is ever going to happen. We're going to get an entirely ghost season next, then we're going to get like an entirely true crime season,
I
and then
feel
we're
that.
only going to roll fire for an entire season.
Right? Like, that's exactly it. We're going to get a lot of something. But this one, for our first season, was very, very diverse. I'm so happy with it.
Congratulations on your haunted locations. Your first ghost, ma'am. Your first
I'm
ghost is...
so excited. Are you ready for me to bring the spook?
I have been ready for you to bring the spook since, like, ever.
Ever.
Since
Like,
I've known you, I've been like,
born ready.
that woman is gonna bring me the spook.
Ma'am,
She's gonna be doing it.
you knew it. You knew it.
I did.
Well, do you want to give us a little bit more of a teaser for your cult next week? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but not too much. I still have no idea.
It's such a hard one to tease.
That's fair.
We teased it earlier. As of right now, as of the time of this recording, where I am in my script, there are no trigger warnings, so it's a bit of a palate cleanser to Ed Kemper. It's both very similar to your cult episode, and also completely different from your cult episode.
I don't know how to interpret
Which
it all.
I feel like is very par for the course because it's a cult episode, so there has to be some kind of similarity.
Yeah.
What can I tease? It is the cult aspect of my case is the least crazy part of my case.
So they're really just an insane organization more than anything.
Pretty much they were a cult, but they are so much more than a cult. And
Are we talking about goop?
yes, I'm talking about Gwyneth Paltrow. You guessed it. We're talking about Gwyneth Paltrow's
It's a
company
lifestyle
Goop.
brand.
It's in the news where she's currently doing a lawsuit. It's not to date this recording. She's doing a lawsuit where she got hit by a skier, or maybe the skier skied into her. We don't know.
We don't know.
We have no idea. No, I'm not doing Goop. That's a joke. Gwyneth Paltrow, no, come for me. I'm sure you're great. Personally, I have no idea who skied into who. I don't really care. Don't come for me. May somebody win. May somebody lose. I don't know.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yeah, may the odds be ever in your favor. I'm not invested in any way, shape, or form. We've lost our Goop sponsorship. I'm so sorry.
We lost our Goop sponsorship. I'm so sorry, guys.
Hate to break the news. We were going to be sponsored for Goop next episode. We're not anymore.
I fucked that up before we even got it.
Whoops. I was going to tell you off the air, but here we are.
Here we are.
No, I think... this one is, it's like there's so much I want to say. I'm like, this is the one where this happens. This is the one where this happens. And I just feel like the less you know going into this, the better. So just when you see the title of next week's episode.
In 2 weeks episode. No, this is...
Next week's episode.
This is part 2.
This is part 2. Next week's episode. Just roll with it. Just let it happen.
Just let it happen.
And that's all I'll say.
I'm ready. I can't wait.
I don't think you're ready.
Oh, never mind. I take it back.
I don't think you're ready.
I'm not ready.
I don't think anybody's ready. I think we'll get into it. I'll see you next week, guys, for my cult episode. Because the more I try and not talk about it, the more I want to talk about it, and I'm just gonna ruin everything. So I'll see you guys next week. To stop me from talking about this anymore, can you tell us where they can find us?
Yes, spooky listeners, if you want to get some more Lady and Alana in your life, you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, at Spookery Podcast. And, Lady, where can they also find us?
They can also find us on YouTube at Spookery Podcast. All of our episodes are up there, and you can comment, which is even weirder. So, like...
Commenting? Who does that?
Who comments these days? And you can, of course, always send us a Gmail at spookerygmail at podcast.com.
Podcast.com.
spookerypodcast@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts, send us your theories, send us your fan art. We're collecting it. We're not going to tell you why yet, but we are.
Yes. We got a secret project in the mix.
It's going to be great. Yeah. Make sure you guys, if you guys are liking the podcast so far, please leave a 5-star review. It means the world to us. I don't know, we just need validation, I guess.
We do. I need valid to tell me that we're doing a good job.
I need someone to say that it's all right. No, we're also collecting those. So if you send reviews, but you don't, it doesn't pop up yet, but you want to say something nice, you can send that at the spookerygmail at podcast.com.
You sure can. Anything you got, pretty much. I mean, if it's related to the spookery and you want us to talk about it, you want us to see it, send it over. I mean, we are collecting, like I said, we're collecting reviews, we're collecting cases, anything you got, whether it's personal or it's just something you want us to talk about.
Yeah, I think that the moral of the story is we're hoarders, and we just like collecting things.
Yeah, that's why we built a library, was to hoard all the stories.
I think that's very telling. I think I need to go nap after this.
We figured out our MO.
Yes. Oh. Perfect. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for an amazing story. Thank you for the hootinest, handiest 2-parter that we ever done see in this side of the spookery.
In this side of the spookery.
Body cloud of possessing me again. Help. Well, on that note, until next time,
stay spooky.
Bye-bye.
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 As we float out in our ethereal essence.
As the spookery fades away into an incorporeal form. 3 a.m. approaches and the bookery must be closed.
It's little by little.
Ah, man.